Okay, hello everyone. This is Pingal from Spiel Times, and I'm so glad you're listening to this interview. I have Ishan with me, and there's John from Cultic Games, the developers of Stygian. Hey everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, John, if I'm not mistaken, you are the creative director, right?
That's true.
Yeah. All right. So, please tell us a little bit about Stygian and your studio.
hmm Uh,
Mhm.
we've been naming Stygian as a role-playing game of horror, loss, and madness for some time now. It started with the idea of what if we take the conventions of a regular CRPG to a modern time, which is being hosted by Lovecraftian mythos, and how can we play with the usual mechanics of character progression or some role-playing systems in marriage with Lovecraftian themes and the themes revolving around the fragility of human beings. So that was the initial concept. Instead of making the player portray the hero, can we make him a fragile human being who is inside the Lovecraftian story? But can we also make those decisions and character building and all those aspects that are unique to RPGs still enjoyable instead of a complete torment? That was the initial idea because I was a bit tired of seeing the same conventions over and over again in the RPG genre, like classical fantasy or space opera and things like that. And I always believed that there are hundreds of other ways to do things. So that was the main concept behind trying to do something like this.
It sounds interesting. We haven't seen Lovecraftian, games like these as side scrollers, and with the RPG element that is. So, sort of a unique concept. Where did you like? What became your inspiration for this game?
Inspiration comes from a lot of different points, and I can count numerous things from the games from early 90s to tabletop role-playing games to film it, and of course Mr. Lovecraft's novels. Its inspiration came from a lot of different, let's say, sources. But also, if you're working on an indie project that would take 3.5 years or so, you have to conserve some kind of an economy of your ideas and of your implementations. So this kind of an art style or this kind of a level design, all those things also came out of necessity because we had an ambitious project at hand and we somehow wanted to see the end. So we had to use our resources really carefully and at the same time try to pull off something like Baldur's Gate in the meantime. So this pushed us in a way that was a combination of pure inspiration and the necessities that we have to alter on our way. So I can say that Stygian is a byproduct of Howard Phillips Lovecraft, of course, tabletop RPGs like uh, World of Darkness games, from Vampire the Masquerade to werewolf kind of themes. A lot of games from 90s, from adventure games, and our game looks like an adventure game, especially in interior areas. Of course, old school RPGs like the first Fallout, Planescape Torment, the Heroes of Might and Magic kind of a hex-based, turn-based combat. And these were the inspirations, and some of those design decisions were made because they seemed achievable, and we wanted to serve this experience so much that we had to handpick our inspirations really carefully to achieve the ending, which is the release, of course.
Right. Where did you get the name Cultic Games? It's very.
It is strange. It is strange because the first game that we tried to develop as Cultic Games was a tabletop strategy game, which took place in an alternate Middle Ages Europe kind of setting. So we worked on that project with my writer here for more than 6 months, and we were getting ready for play tests and another Kickstarter. Then I had to work at a company, at a game company, and I was really busy, so we had to halt the project. And after my job ended over there, we suddenly thought that making Stygian would be a better idea than starting with a board game. But the Cultic Games was the name of that board game developer, and I wasn't expecting me to find myself in a Lovecraftian project with a name like Cultic Games. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't invented because of Stygian. Cultic Games was before Stygian, but they became the perfect combination. And I like to see us as some kind of a cult, as you can see from our Kickstarter
Yeah.
videos, or
We saw that.
yeah,
A very interesting thing.
yeah. And let me show you something for 10
Yeah.
seconds. This
Okay.
this thing protects the office. So this is the first character that you see before entering our place.
This
Or
is
let's-
the sentinel. This is the protective sentinel.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
But we do not sacrifice people around here. Not regularly. From time to time.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fine.
That's fine. Yeah. It happens, I guess. So is Cultic Games the only game development studio in Turkey?
No, actually, the mobile development scene is, it's pretty populated and it's growing. But when it comes to RPGs or experiences like ours, I can say that we are pretty lonely. And all of my teammates, they had to learn and develop their craft almost from zero when it comes to developing RPGs. Because these kind of games, they're rare. They're also rare around the world because they take too much time. They're extremely complicated. They require developing more than one game most of the time. So when I look back and think about it, it was pretty crazy to do something like that with these people from day one. But somehow we are still going.
Sounds like a lot of hard work.
Yeah, you bet.
So, Cultic Games is a newly formed game studio based in Turkey, right?
That is true.
Yeah. So, what are your future plans?
Hmm. You know, I've been playing with more than a couple of ideas for years now. And also, Stygian was a project that was waiting in my shelf for 4 years before we became active to do it. And there are other projects waiting, somewhere in my mental shelf, let's say. So we'll see. We'll see. There are a lot of interesting projects which can be attributed to RPG genre and also some other genres. But we'll see. We'll see how Stygian will fare. We'll see if people will want more of the bleak world that we're presenting them. It will all depend on on the reception and on our excitement towards any kind of feature projects. Right now, I just stick up with what I do for Stygian.
Okay. What is the state of Turkey's attitude towards games or video games in general? Like, do they prefer games? Is there like a stigma against it?
hmm we are a country that is really interested in all kinds of free to play competitive internet cafe kind of
Hmm.
games. There are
Okay.
millions of young Turkish people who spend long hours at internet cafes cursing their friends, flaming their friends over their bad moves, bad team spirit or whatever. We are also really interested in all kinds of mobile games because our eyes are just connected to our cell phones, so it's only natural that we like those kind of games, and Turkish people, we like competition in
Hmm.
those kind of things. But when it
All right.
comes to narrative games or adventure games or role playing games, since the language barrier is pretty steep,
Hmm.
I cannot say that that there is a big interest in those kind of titles. But we are seriously thinking localizing Stygian as fast as possible to Turkish language as well. I tend to believe that people cannot communicate with those kind of games because of the language. Because when I think
Hmm.
about Stygian, it's a narrative game and it's a literal game. It
Hmm.
involves a lot of literature. So of course it would come pretty hard for some people to get in touch with what's going on inside the game, especially through the text. But if you just get rid of that kind of a language barrier,
Hmm.
you can raise your hopes higher for Turkish people to enjoy the game at least.
Hmm. Okay. So far, you have raised 73,000 euros from Kickstarter. Do you think that's enough for the project?
No, that wasn't enough. That wasn't
Okay.
enough, and we had to raise more in order to continue.
Okay. As a company, is Cultic Games sustainable?
For the production of Stygian, yes. For feature, we'll see.
Hmm. Okay. So, indie games of this particular genre tend to fly under the radar most of the time. How are you planning on marketing it to your audience?
That's a good question, actually. There are millions of games coming out every day, and I guess people are a little bit, too washed out of Lovecraftian projects or those kind of premises. We have done interesting things in the past, like our Kickstarter campaign video, or maybe you have watched our viral video. It's called Cthulhu statues appearing around the world, and it seems like it has nothing to do with us, but it's actually a game commercial. It's a commercial for our, for the release of our demo.
All right.
And I come from film background, and I fared in those areas. So we'll do our best. We'll do our best to make it visible. This is also the role of the publisher, but we are all in this together, and I'll make sure that personally, me and my team we'll do everything to make the game visible, in that ocean of crappy to, really good games, which, come out every year in, hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
So let's say, probably viral videos, good advertisement, and good targeting. And we're planning to complete the let's say gold copy master in a couple of weeks. So I hope I'll have some time to think of those things without have to think about the game, because this is the last phase of the game, and I have a lot of responsibilities on a lot of different spheres. But in the end, I have some experienced friends over here, who were dealing with social media, and who helped me in making the videos that we have done previously. So I guess if we can collaborate again, and with some time, we can pick the interest of people, let's say. But in what kind of a naughty or provocative way, I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Okay. Out of all the other genres and themes, what engendered the idea of making a Lovecraftian game, which is so hard to conceptualize that many mainstream developers tend to ignore it as a potential investment? Why go down the hard path when plenty of other options are available?
Uh, because I was older than 30. I was failing in the filmmaking business for some time now, and in order
Have you
to.
made any films?
Sorry.
Have you made any films?
Yeah, I did.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay. I would like to watch them.
Yeah,
If you
I can
have,
share some links. I can share some links, after the
yeah,
conversation.
all right.
But in the end, if there are a couple of reasons to that. If you want to, get acknowledged in something that you have, just found yourself in, you should have an original concept, and an original concept is mostly hard to realize concept, because it wouldn't have been original any other way. It should be something that other people wouldn't think of, and if somebody didn't do that before, it would be probably hard, right? So for me, in order to make an impact on people, well, there were no other way for me. No game developer or no game designer or no storyteller, would want his or her baby to, get lost in that, crowd, in that anonymous crowd. So originality and uniqueness is something that would make your product or your experience shine. So it was only natural. And also at the same time, I've been an RPG player for years, and as I said before, I was really tired of seeing the same mechanics and same concepts, the same themes, same kind of an approach, to the world design. So I was really excited about the possibilities that could have been captured with this kind of a setting. So we wanted to, shape everything to support an old school RPG in this kind of a world. For example, let me give you an example. Um, People couldn't pull it off before, because in an old school RPG there is the tempo of exploring, dungeoneering, returning to the exploration again. So it requires a world like Middle Earth, or Dragonlance, or a space opera kind of planet exploring thing, because a good RPG needs all these different negative and positive game and experience spaces, and also they have their own kind of looting, character progression, their own kind of tempo and progression. But in in the stories of Lovecraft, it's you cannot visit in a Lovecraftian game. You cannot visit a Migo layer and then get out and visit a deep one layer and then get out. There should be an explanation to that kind of gameplay style. And the things that the protagonists of Lovecraft experiences, they're so rare. They're one in a million. That's why those people go crazy, because the things that they have to witness are beyond their notions, beyond their understanding, and these things are really unique. How come how the big question was, how could we make those things more common, but also how can we preserve their initial value and the awe and terror that was associated with them. So we thought about this town that is stuck between strange dimensions. Now the town is at a different dimension. So we could introduce all kinds of things that we want to see in our world, while still preserving the 1920s and the American themes. And we wanted the game to begin after the apocalypse, so we can set our own status quo and our own universe building. So, in the warehouse that is in Riverside of Arkham, now Pikmin ghouls reside. Or there is an explanation behind the tyranny that takes place in Arkham, because the mob was here because of a smuggling operation, and since the town gets stuck between strange dimensions, they never returned to Chicago, so they became the kings of Arkham. So that explains all those negative themes that we are trying to explore in the game. So
Is Arkham a city you are willing to feature in the game?
Sorry?
Is Arkham a city in the game you're willing to feature?
Yeah, it's the city that player resides, and it's our main stage. It's the main stage.
Okay.
It's a fictional town created by Howard Phillips Lovecraft, much before to Batman's Arkham, actually.
Will there be any reference to the Miskatonic University?
Sure, more than one.
Okay, sounds like a true Lovecraftian game now.
I hope so. You'll be the judge.
Okay. So cosmic horror is like extremely hard to write, let alone animate or sketch. Like given the bizarre descriptions of, geometry, architecture, and co-founding nightmares creates a disorienting
Yeah.
obstacle which like hinders the transfer of information from words to pictures. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
most difficult kind of horror out there. So many have tried and
Yeah.
failed. How do you aim on overcoming these hurdles?
Doing the real thing is the hardest thing. Like if we had gone the way of the path of Amnesia, or another first person horror game, which takes its strength from the first person perspective, realistic lighting, and all that stuff, it is really hard. But from day one, my vision for Stygian was like, somehow the player would be seeing the unbearable world that he or she develops in from the perspective of 1920s printed press, and it's any kind of art that is associated to that genre, instead of witnessing the harsh reality. So all the creatures that that we depict and all the visuals that we draw for the player are like the reflections of an unbearable reality. So the real horror, I guess, or I hope, would come from atmosphere, writing, the setting, and the situations that we would put the player in, or the decisions that he or she would have to take in order to continue the journey. The horror aspect, and and the cosmic threat, all those things be found inside the writing, inside the gameplay, inside the game mechanics, little tidbits in the music, and when it comes all together, hopefully it will turn into an experience that contains the DNA of his horror, and hopefully much more.
The video game industry observed a craze for Lovecraftian games in the past few years. However, most of these games turned out to be subpar or mediocre. What ingredients are you employing in Stygian to make it stand out from the rest?
Everybody, every kind of a game director or developer, or anyone who is interested in making something enjoyable would believe that their game would stand out somehow. But if I try to be realistic, um, I'm pretty content about what we present to the player to role play his or her character. I strongly believe that we're giving him or her the right tools to have a unique experience by really putting himself or herself inside the skin of that character. And since you are not being the hero, and since you're not trying to rescue the world or something, it's already too late. I hope it would be a much more personal journey. And there are some points in the world, in the game, that the game interacts with the player instead of the character. So Stygian tries to create that kind of a connection with the player. And I cannot critique the other game development studios that are interpreting Lovecraft. And those are their decisions. But I'm pretty content about our decisions of how we interpret his stories, and how we fill in the blanks, and how we use his characters and themes. So hopefully, and I'm also speaking from experience. Most of the Lovecraft fans who tried the demo, or had some idea about the game, they acknowledged how we approach things. So I hope it will continue that way, like that.
Okay. Since you mentioned interaction, can you please explain how Stygian is truly unique in terms of player to world or world to player interaction?
For example, we have a system called belief systems that explains your worldview, and also how you replenish your lost sanity. So whenever you roleplay your character correctly, if you're a divine character, and if you pray, or if you just convert a lost soul to the path of God somehow, you will gain sanity. Or if you're a rationalistic character, whenever you sort a mystery in the world through the means of science, you gain sanity. Add some mental condition systems to that. Whenever your sanity drops below a certain level, you can develop a mental condition according to the actions you have made in the game. it would change your dialogue options, and it would be up to you to play the mad, or you could avoid those dialogue options to live your madness internally. So we give all those kind of role-playing chances to the player, in addition to the regular crafting and resting kind of battling and leveling up kind of an experience. And also, our quests, they're designed in a way that they would interpret some of his stories, but from a multi-angled gameplay perspective. We have some really interesting early game endings that have their own illustrations, and that have their own text, that would also reward the player with achievements. So we wanted Stygian to be a game about most of the RPG players, and I'm including myself, they're about they're completionists. They're 100% completionists. When we're playing that kind of an RPG, we want to open every fucking crate, and we want to do every fucking quest out there. So we tend to step out of the game and think about the meta of the game. You know what I mean? If I can level up, and if I can go to that location, and then I could complete that quest and return and get a better weapon. If something went wrong, or what would happen if I just load the game and try another save, so I would progress better. So a regular RPG just let's say encourages that kind of a gameplay, but it also kills the immersion, because we do not we do not survive real life like that. And Stygian, from day one, Stygian was a game about immersion, and was a game about lacking things instead of owning things. So in the end, we tried to balance this game and create its experience in a way that the player wouldn't be ashamed of going through with his or her losses and still enjoy the game. So I can say that when I compare it to other role-playing games, Stygian tries to stress that kind of experience.
Okay.
And we are still balancing, and we are still working on it, but from its quest design to its character statistics, it's a game that is designed for the player to endure things instead of conquering things.
Will the game appeal to players who aren't completionists, like who play for casual stuff?
That's definitely the idea. That's the idea. Completionists should drop that attitude and start continuing the game with their failures and with the things they couldn't achieve, because the game should award them somehow too, because in this kind of a game, being mad is also helpful. In this kind of a game, you may not run away from addiction, because it may create an edge. In this kind of a game, you'll have to use occult, and you'll have to find yourself in dark paths, and there's nothing wrong with it, because it's the end of the world, and you're obsessively going to a certain direction, and the game is about about completing this journey, whatever the cost. So my best wish would be completionists playing the game without giving too much shit about its its systems and min-maxing and acquiring everything kind of a deal, because the game says that okay, easy, relax, there is no perfect exit, so keep on. And for people who are not completionists, everything should work fine if we are doing our jobs good here.
Okay. So, like, since sanity is a big part of Lovecraftian theme stories and stuff, how are you planning on depicting madness, and how will it shape the world of Stygian?
It changes, it directly changes the dialogues, it changes the things you see in the world, it changes the colors and the effects of the world. It changes your combat capabilities. It changes, numerous things in the game, and from day one, sanity and madness mechanics, they were there, and they were always something. We put some effort in it. Enough, we'll see, but we did our best to make the madness experience of the game stand out.
Um, so can a character go completely mad, and what happens if that does happen?
Completely mad.
Yeah.
If it happens in exploration,
Hmm.
you get a state called in the jaws of madness,
Okay.
and we have a, let's say, a negative experience called angst. With that, you have to acquire some negative perks called defects. In
Okay.
that state, you can, it's not game over, but you rapidly develop angst, so you become a a much worse version of yourself in the end by acquiring a lot of angst levels. So it's bad to dropping down to one sanity in exploration, and if it happens in combat, it's game over. You get mad, and it's game over.
Can you explain to us the significance of archetypes and the belief system that you have implemented in your game? How do those two function?
The archetypes, you can see them as broader versions of some classes in RPGs, but we wanted to, depict
Okay.
every kind of unique 1920s character that would be interesting to play as in Stygian. And belief systems are another way to further deepen character building, especially role-playing wise in Stygian. So you can play a god-fearing soldier, or you can play a rationalistic criminal, or you can play even an esoteric scientist in Stygian, and you would see all those effects in the dialogues, and sometimes the gameplay, sometimes how a quest ends or revolves. So Stygian is not that long, but when I think about the experience, I guess it would be for a first timer, it would be around 15 to 20 hours. But the replayability that would come with all those choices, from the archetype to the to the skills, to character background, to belief systems, and when you add the things that that would happen to you on the road, because you can be an alcoholic, or you can be a drug addict, or you can be a schizophrenic, and things like that. We wanted that each playthrough would be a unique experience in itself, and those things that you mentioned, they're contributing to that idea.
Does being an alcoholic or a drug addict bring with it its own compulsions?
Like complications.
No, no, no. As in, if you are an alcoholic,
Uh-huh.
will the game force you to drink more, something like that?
Yeah, yeah. After a while that you do not consume alcohol, the withdrawal period comes, and
Yeah.
there are
Okay,
three
that's
levels of withdrawal: mild, normal, and severe. And you'll get higher and higher penalties, because you won't be consuming that substance. But in the end, with some willpower, there's some light at the end of the tunnel, that you can get cured by yourself, by just waiting and struggling.
It's a very interesting system, I guess. It's like many RPG games do not focus on that particular, depth of gameplay.
Hmm.
It's
You know,
very admirable.
we were really interested in the first Fallout games, and the first Fallout games have that kind of an addiction system. And when we start doing something about the fragility of human beings, addiction and dependency and those kind of things were inevitable for us. And those systems took some while to implement, but in the end, they're contributing to the experience, I guess.
Many games present an illusion of choices to veil the fact that none of the choices made actually make any real difference in the world or in the narrative. What is your strategy to tackle that issue?
It's a good question, actually. Um, you know, just stepping out of the usual path is a tremendous effort to to realize in a game. And I after getting into this business, I 100% understand that game designers would like to stay on their course instead of creating permutations that would require more development and more testing and more storytelling, more asset production to the game. But this is an RPG game, and its premise was giving all those choices and possibilities to to the player to carve his or her own path with his or her own character. So I guess we have utilized a couple of different strategies. One of those were really doing things the right way by working hard, by designing things that are just for some ethical perspectives and some challenges. So, for example, we wanted to make stealth as fun as possible for the player, who wouldn't delve into the combat directly. So, we have created some features. For example, the Pikmin ghouls in the game, they can, smell you. And if you're stealthing your way, you'll see that they're animating. They're showing animation of sniffing out and locating you if you stay at one place for too long. Or we have created some patrol routes, and in we have a scene that the enemies are flying over you, and you can see their shadows, and whenever you collide with their shadows, the combat happens. So you can also run away from the shadows like a really small arcade game. I believe all those kind of mini features add to the experience, and they would be experienced by some players, and they won't by some others. And this is the curse, and this is the magic of RPGs. So in the end, we had to sort most of those with hard work and changing our iterations again and again throughout the process until we get something right, or we believe that is right, at the moment. Some other ways, you can, especially while writing dialogue, a dialogue does not require, content or, new features most of the time. Sometimes it requires, but whenever you solve that problem, you can reuse it again. And, with dialogue, you can create a lot of alternate paths and, a lot of ways for the player to interact with the world. That's another way.
Okay.
And another tactic that I use is the giving the potential of an alternate reality or possibility to the player, and given him or her the chance to decide or something, but it would be mostly about his or her own worldview. Let's say we collect those kind of information throughout the way, but who knows when we will utilize them again in the future, and still making a choice and thinking about how he or she really perceives the world, or thinking the same about his or her own character. It makes some of the decisions count in the game, but I cannot give you some too many spoilers.
Okay, sounds good. Do you have any stealth in your game?
We do. You
Can
can
you tell
almost
us? Yeah.
you can bypass the almost 90% of the combat scenarios of the game by stealth. If you're not that kind of person, if you're not interested in turn-based games or tactical RPG kind of stuff, you can
Okay.
you can just feel free to use the stealth skill to bypass almost all of the combats.
Okay. Uh, are you planning on featuring any specific story from the Cthulhu mythos, or will it be a mishmash of various stories written by Lovecraft?
Uh, I just missed the beginning of the question, sir.
Are you planning on featuring any specific story from the Cthulhu mythos, or
Yep,
will it be a
yep.
mishmash of all the stories or various stories written by Lovecraft?
Um, it depends, but I can say that all the main quests of the game are, somehow inspired by one, especially the first two quests are directly inspired by, two individual stories of Mr. Lovecraft. The third one, it's like an amalgamation of different stories, and there are hundreds of references in the game, from items to side quests to small characters to some pictures, etc. There are hundreds of references.
How do you describe Stygian best? Stygian best, inspired by Lovecraftian world or based on Lovecraftian world?
A role-playing game of horror, loss, and madness, which revolves around the mythology of Howard Phillips Lovecraft.
Okay.
Okay, that was really good.
Um, yeah. Is there any scope for multiplayer co-op anytime soon?
No, nothing like that.
Okay.
It's a
Uh,
deliberately single-player experience. And
it's
we have no idea how we could pull out something like that.
yeah. It seems a little complicated. Uh, are you planning on releasing this on consoles?
I've been hearing a lot of requests for a Switch version, uh, but the future will show. Right now we are still a computer RPG, and we'll stay that way for a while, I guess. But if things go right, why not? We can just weigh our chances to do something like that.
Okay, so like with the rise, the rise of mobile games and the mobile gaming industry, do you see potential in that? And like, are you willing to
It's
work on mobile
with
projects in the
Stygian
future?
or another title.
No, as a
Mhm.
company,
With
I'm speaking as a company.
Definitely, I believe that every game is a different entity, and the the devices and the tools that the game that game require can change. Sometimes a game idea would work better on Switch because of its portability, and another game idea would work perfectly in mobile, while it stutters in computers. It depends on the experience. What kind of an experience would you like to create for for your players. If it's an experience that would take some time in, in real life or real time, because, you can find us doing something like Pokemon Go. Why not? I'm just speculating, but that kind of an experience requires a mobile device, and it turns into a strength because we have those fucking machines with us all the time. So the game developer could use that device to implement the experience. It all depends, and I'm not against anything like that, and I've played some good games in the mobile too. But I'm mostly a PC gamer, I could say.
So, like, any plans for microtransactions?
No, nothing like that.
That's good.
Nothing like that. We're completely. Everything that we stand for is completely against it.
Okay.
There could be expansions, there could be downloadable content in different forms, free or not free, but nothing like that. Nothing
Okay,
like
so you
microtransactions.
plan on like releasing paid DLCs?
Let's say if everything goes right, let's say expansions, because there's still so many stories to tell inside this universe. All the things that we had written for the game, all the quests and all those different characters that we have created for the game would take around 40 hours or so, and we just have 15 hours at hand. We still have so much to tell, and so many possibilities to share with players. But at the moment, as I said before, core aim is making Stygian Reign of the Old Ones, as good as possible. Who knows what future would bring?
Yeah. You pushed out a release date trailer. That is the release date is 26th of September.
That is
Yeah. So how's the development progress so far?
true. Pretty busy
Okay.
and hot.
Okay. So will you be releasing like any demos and stuff after you have like finished development?
There is already a demo.
I'm saying-
on
Yeah,
Steam.
there is a demo. You can download over Steam.
Like after you
Yeah.
have finished development?
No, nothing like that, because people have a free demo, and they'll have the real game. So it's not in our agenda at the moment.
Alright. Ishan, any more questions?
So far, no.
Okay. I guess that will be this then.
There were some pretty hard questions in the interview.
Yeah. It's just good that we are not asking anything like
Especially,
spoiler related or stuff.
Especially about depicting the unknown. It's something that we are still struggling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess John, thank you for like taking out time and like having this interview possible.
A pleasure, sir. A pleasure.
All right, it's a pleasure for us
Thank
as well. Yeah.
For your time.
It's a pleasure for us as well. Nice
Yeah.
talking
Nice
to you,
talking
man.
to you, John.
Yeah, likewise. Take care.
Okay, take care.
All right?
Best of luck.
We'll be in
Yeah.
touch. Bye bye. You too.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Thank you, man. Bye bye.
Bye bye. See ya. Okay, guys.
Okay.
So that's it for the interview.
John had some pretty good answers for all the hard questions we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna end it there.
So like we could have
Join
asked
us-
like what
Hmm.
he thought about Call of Cthulhu or Sinking City.
Yeah, we could have. But then I guess we were only focusing on Stygian only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. I guess that'll be it. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day, night,
Join
evening.
us next time on
Yeah.
Spill Times.
See you.
Yeah.